There he is. What do you got there, Matt? Sounds like you got a little guitar with you.
Love, love.
So, Matt.
Love, love, love. Love, love, love. There's nothing you can do that can't be done. Nothing you can sing that can't be sung. Nothing you can say, but you can learn how to play the game. It's easy.
Nothing you can make that can't be made. Nothing you can save that can't be saved. Nothing you can do, but you can learn how to be you in time. It's easy. Take it, Matt.
All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. All you need is love. All you need is love. All you need is love. Love, love is all you need.
Nice. The first official guitar-to-guitar live feed pickleball video ever.
You know, I just watched the documentary How the Beatles Changed the World. It came out last year, and they wrote this song specifically for the moment that the BBC did the first international television broadcast. Like, it had never been done before. And they invited the Beatles on to play, and they had just released an album. And so everyone thought they were going to sing something from their album to promote it. But no, they were like, there's going to be 100 million people watching this television show for the first time. And they wrote this song to say, this is the message we want everyone to hear. All you need is love. Like, how more direct can you get? And so anyway, this is like a mini little broadcast, and this song, I think we need some of that right now. So I'm glad I've watched some of your other ones, Jack, and I saw you playing guitar. I'm like, okay, we got to do some together. There's a little lag, so we couldn't do it simultaneously, but work something out. And
right.
Thanks for being game.
Yeah, that was fun. Hopefully the viewers, it didn't get too delayed, and hopefully they were able to enjoy that. I appreciate you doing that for me.
Yeah.
So tonight we're going to be talking about the Engage Poach, but we're going to be talking about the model that's similar to the Blade. It's called the Extreme. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And Matt has one there. If you could kind of show that to the folks there, what it looks like. It's got the similar paint job, but
it's long and tall like me.
It's definitely long and tall, and you're saying it's about 8 ounces, right? It's got the same length as the Blade. Is that true?
Yeah, basically the same size. And if it's all right, Jack, I thought I would start by just talking about long paddles in general, because they I just saw Pickleball Central sent out their newsletter, and I've been saying this for years that I don't know why people stick to the short wide model, and I think it's going to change. And when I saw this newsletter, probably it looked like about 80% of the ones they were advertising, the new ones were long. And I take a little pride. I will be embarrassed to admit that I think I was the first one to really start playing with a long paddle. It was actually thanks to Prem Carnot, the pickleball guru. He's the one that got me back into the sport many years ago, and he gave me a long paddle that someone kind of just made in their garage. Like it was beat up and dead, but I liked the length because I was coming from tennis and badminton where, you know, you have a longer reach. And
Right.
I saw these short squat paddles. I'm like, why are people using that? And so he gave me this paddle. I got used to it. I really liked the whipping action. I liked
Was
the
it that
reach.
Jensen guy?
That was
Was it
before
that?
Brian Jensen.
Okay.
I don't even know who made that original one. It was kind of the original hexagon material, the honeycomb style.
Right.
So then I went down and was in Southern California, and Brian Jensen, actually his wife, had a long paddle made by him. He had this pop, I think he's still doing it. And I got this one specially designed, and he even put this like explosion ball pattern on it. And this is the one I used in my first nationals. And I actually got, I had it taken away from me at the end of the tournament by the tournament directors to test if it was legal or not, because basically my opponents were complaining that I had so much power, so much spin, that they said there must be something on the inside that's doing it. And it wasn't.
It happens to me.
Okay, yes. So they took it and they examined it and it came back legal. And so after this one, I got another one, this one from Brian Jensen as well. And this is the one that I used in the year that I won nationals. And it's funny, I pick it up right now even, and in the middle, this is a side story, but in the middle of my run in the open tournament, my handle had a small fracture in the middle. So it actually had a wobble in it and I couldn't hit as hard. I had to like really pay attention to what was happening here. And I brought it to the medical tent. And there was this amazing guy working there who put a splint in it like it was a broken bone. And it basically got me through the tournament because I didn't have a spare. Note to tournament players, always have a spare paddle with you.
Right.
So I did that. And then from there, this guy is also like a mad scientist of paddles. And then I met another one who was Rob Elliott with Engage.
Right.
And so got to see, he started sending me prototypes because at that point there wasn't a long paddle made by Engage. And I kept saying like, hey, we got to have something like that. And so I don't have all the ones that I got from him, but I've gotten prototype after prototype and I've ended up handing them out to other people. Some of them were like extra long, like they would no longer be legal. They had to start making length requirements. This is a few years ago because we were pushing it. And basically now the blade is what I've played with for the last, I don't know, 3-4 years. And that's the Encore version and has the maximum length allowed and then a pretty slender 17 by 6, I think is the dimensions on this. And I mean, as you can see, this is where I hit it mostly. So that spot compared to, I don't even have a regular size paddle, but you're getting another.
But in those, definitely more towards the tip.
Yeah, so you get extra length and extra reach and extra, I don't know the physics term, but I think of it like torque. That the fulcrum from my wrist to the end adds more whip. So serves, putaways, overheads, volleys, everything that you want to hit with power, you get more action on with the long paddle. Now the trade-off has always been the less width.
Lock.
So what width gives you is a wider sweet spot this direction. And as you were bringing up earlier, more blocking power at net when you're wanting to have quick defenses and have basically a bigger block to have. So while I don't think they're for everyone, they do have a number of advantages, especially, and this is something I work on a lot with people when I do trainings and clinics and stuff, is being able to train yourself that you get a relationship with the sweet spot of your paddle. So when that becomes consistent enough and you don't need the width as much, you're not off hitting it as much, then the length becomes a greater advantage than the width. Because width is only an advantage for defensive shots, and for when you hit off center and need a bigger sweet spot. I can keep going, but I want to pause in case you want to say something, Jack, because I'll monopolize otherwise.
People want to hear you speak more than me, but that's a great point where once you have the ability to be able to handle yourself at the net, where people are pegging you with shots and you're blocking them, you're not missing left and right, up and down, then the length really can be utilized as a weapon. And there's, I also found the long paddles are great at cutting off the angles when you're at the kitchen and people try to go wide on you.
Sure.
You cut off that angle, and a lot of people they'll get caught stepping back a little bit to, and then you're really in trouble. So that extra length will help you cut off those angle balls. I mean, I think that's a big advantage too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that's a great example of getting that extra reach at net and being able to pick things off and go around. The trade-off.
So let me ask you. So have you ever played with a conventional paddle, or you just was always with the long narrow paddles?
I've tried.
Have you tried?
Yeah.
You just didn't gel with them.
No, there's advantages and disadvantages. The advantage
Right.
has always been with those. I felt much more comfortable in the soft game, in up at net and dinking, for sure. I think it is then a disadvantage for balls that are near you and you can hit and move around. The shorter, wider paddle, I think, usually has more feel and better touch for that. I tend to be on the aggressive side, so for my game, the length was always well worth it, and the loss of power was never worth the trade-off. So
okay.
So then, thankfully, I have a mad scientist on my side in Rob Elliott, he comes from an engineering and chemistry background, and so he's always playing around with the materials. And it's for whether you like it or not, people like Rob and other paddle makers are going to change the sport, because as the technology improves, so can spin, power, reach. All of these things can get pushed to the limit. So Rob's been doing that in every way he can, with the roughness on the paddle, with the length, with the width, and now with the material. So go ahead.
It seems like a few years back he was focused on the roughness and really pushing that roughness. And but now, I mean, once you've hit that maximum, there's not much place to go there. So I think he's been focusing on, like you said, these different materials. And now this new Poach paddle, or the Poach line, it has these 6 layers. The skin is made up of 6 layers, and it's bonded to the core in a way that gives you a soft feel on contact. But I have to say, this is really the first paddle that there's such a wide range between the power that it gives you and the softness that it gives you. There's some paddles that have a more narrow gap between the power and the touch. This one has a huge spectrum, and because of that, some people may find it a little bit hard to control at first, because it does have a lot of power. And but once you figure it out, it's really great to have that variety of shots or shot making ability with this new Poach. The way the composition of it, because this is the first paddle that I've figured out that really gives you the touch with the power. I mean, a lot of them say they do, but this one really does. It just seems like a magic formula that he's come up with now, and I think this one is going to be huge.
It's what he's been trying to crack the code on, and I learned this back.
Everybody a combination,
Yeah, I learned this back in table tennis when I got into high-level competitive table tennis. Is that ping pong paddles are very finely tuned instruments, and the really good paddles are made up of, first, the blade. Forget about the rubber on the outside. The blade is often made of many layers of different kinds of wood, and they would work to, like, the one that I had 7 different layers, and then after that there'd be a sponge and a tacky rubber on the outside. And there's something about that layering effect that they did in table tennis that I don't know where Rob got the idea, but he's been playing around with it, and now, like you said, has the 6 layers in here. So, you know, every paddle that I would try usually had a trade-off. Either you got touch and feel and no power, or you got power, but it just zinged off of your paddle and was hard to then control.
Right.
So I can't explain the technology really, but I can tell you what it feels like to play with, which is up at net, I feel like it's done the 2 things that I really wanted with my game, because I lack patience most of the time. I get up there and I want to go for it and put the ball away.
Yeah, yeah.
And part of it was it's my
I think a
style,
lot of
but it's
people.
also the paddle is such that it is so, even the blade is hard, and so it comes off fast. And so having the control, I'd rather try and put the ball away. But now with this one, I find I could get up there and it's almost like having a wide, you know, sweet spot soft paddle, that I can stay in that rally and I feel comfortable with it. But then when I want it, and this is where it really came, like, I go in skeptical. I mean, yes, I'm a part of, I use the Engage paddles, but I haven't gone the sponsorship route like many players have gone. I always wanted to stay like, I want to use the paddle I really want to use. So I go out and try to field test it. So what I found was, when it was my 3rd shot, not my drop, my 3rd shot drive that convinced me, because my serves were really zinging. And then I'd get a return and I'd go to drive that 3rd ball, and my opponents, who play with me regularly, they know my game, they know my power, they know what's coming, and I'd drive it and they would put their paddle up and it would go underneath their paddle, or they would hit it on this bottom edge. It
So
had
you're getting a lot of topspin.
so much more spin than I was accustomed to, than they were accustomed to, right over the net, and it was dip. And so that, it's not the skin roughness, although he pushes the envelope there too, but something about that layering, I believe the ball stays on it a little longer and grips,
Right.
and then zings off. So
Because it doesn't feel super rough when you feel the paddles. They feel a little bit smooth.
yeah,
So, but I mean, whenever I'm trying or reviewing a new paddle, one of the first questions that a lot of people ask me is, how does it spin the ball? How does it grip the ball? How does the ball come off the paddle? Do you get more spin, more spin? So you're saying this one is a big spinner for you.
I haven't played with it much, so I'm still finding that to be true. But that time, that's what showed me this is doing something my other paddles were not. And yeah, I feel the same when I feel it. It feels smoother than even the blade, the Encore from before. But something about that layering effect, I think, trampolining almost is how it feels, but not in a way that wasn't uncontrollable for me, because I also had the feel when I was doing a softer shot, it was there. And I like, you know, it's something I teach a lot too, is how to get the sensitivity through your whole body into the paddle, so that you can feel the vibration off of it. You hear the sound, there's lots of feedback for it, and you're not death gripping it. And that's another interview, but yeah, how to have it so that it stays a little longer in the paddle. I mean, we're talking microseconds, but it makes a difference, especially as your level increases. I mean, you talk to Marcin Rospetsky, who's also done with Engage, and he and I interviewed him once about his paddle, and he said basically he went from coming in 2nd and 3rd in a lot of his events, and then the year that he came out and just won everything is when he switched to a paddle that had more of that touch and feel that he could then move, and that was the blade. And
the blade, right? He's got his signature.
And I haven't talked to Marcin in a couple of months, but I'm guessing he's going to go to this one. Like I don't know why you'd stay with the other.
Yeah, I mean, like I said in my prior review of the Poach Advantage that I did with Matt Staub, and it's funny because we're all saying the same things. And I spoke to you earlier on the phone, before ever speaking to you, and we both kind of said the same thing, how it gives you that elusive combination of the power with the touch. And Matt Staub said the same thing about this one, where he said it gives you that, when you swing hard and fast, it gives you the power, and when you take it easy at the kitchen, it gives you the soft feel. So it really does do both, and it's not just marketing mumbo jumbo, because we've all said the same kind of comments without talking about this ahead of time. So there's definitely something to it.
Yeah.
But what did you find when you first switched from the you're so used to that blade? What do you think are the major differences between a paddle like the surface of the blade and with this new Poach? Is it mostly the softer feel?
I think the power was similar. So I actually got it's the benefit of knowing the paddle maker. I get a lot of prototypes. So this was another one that I got, which is along, and it's kind of I think a first version of the Poach. I don't know if I'm supposed to show this stuff, but it's fun. I've got one that I don't want to show because I'm hoping he makes it, and I don't want other people to copy it yet. But and this one had tremendous soft touch and feel. And then I went to hit my serve, and I'm like, it's like 20% less power. I can't accept it. It wasn't enough. Like for my game, I'm not willing to make that trade-off. And then I picked up this one, and I had my buddy stand on the other side. I'm like, tell me how this serve is. Let me know, does this pop? Is this zinging on you? Is this forcing you back? And he said, yes, that is like your blade. That is if not even more. And because I feel like I can even put a little more extra spin on it, I mean, that's something, I'm going for subtle differences on my serve. So if I can get it deep and hard and with some more topspin, that pushes my opponent even further back, making their journey up to net longer and making my third shot to hit down at their feet even easier. So all those little advantages are something I look for. And I found that with this. So that was, it's not for everyone, but for me, I just can't go below the level of power that I've gotten used to. But I'm happy to add more softness. And so I got up and did some of the soft game to feel, and like, wow, this feels like, what it felt like is the one that you have, what do you call it? The Advantage? Is that what that one's called?
This
I think of it, I think of it as the Elite Pro, because that was the version before this, the one that I know Ben Johns plays with and has really made.
Same shape as the Elite Pro.
I think that shape is the best that has come out. And I don't say that because I'm with Engage. I think that, Marston's on. Cool. I was just talking about you, Marston. That shape has done the height and width, I think, for most players, the best. So I've played with that. And the short game, the soft game up front, I like that paddle a lot. I liked it even before it was the Poach. And so I was looking, can I get that? And I started to feel that with this paddle. Up here, I can get that soft feel. And when I go to the back or from my put away shots, I've got the power when I want it. So that's what I've been finding with it.
When I reviewed the Elite Pro, I loved it, and I actually played with it for a bit. But I just found it a little bit too powerful for me. And it's like Robert, he took everything that was great, but like what you said, I love the length and the size. I think it's perfect because it's 16 inches long. It's not too long where it feels like a long, unwieldy paddle. And it's not too short, and it doesn't sacrifice much width at all. It's almost like the perfect paddle shape as far as length and width goes for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's almost like he took that Elite Pro and took everything that was good about it and made it better. Added the softness, but kept the power, which was incredible. And that's the paddle I'm playing with now. So if the paddle that you're using has everything but just in a different shape, it's going to be a great paddle, especially for guys that play both singles and doubles.
Yeah, and so I do want to say that, like, I think for most players, the one that you have would be a better choice.
Right.
And what I said at the beginning of this is if you do get yourself really well trained in that consistent contact point of and that's all about body setup and your movement so that you get it where you want it
Right.
and you're getting in a sweet spot. Then you can start playing around with the length and seeing does that does that become more of an advantage than a disadvantage. And until that's
Right.
true, I think the shape that you have is he really, I think he really nailed it with that. And um,
Yeah.
if you ever get Ben Johns on here, I don't know if I'm assuming he would switch to this. I don't know why someone wouldn't, but he could probably speak to it more because that's, I feel like he
Yeah.
made that paddle
He's
his.
watched. I think I saw him in there. So if he wants to make a comment up there about it, that would be great to see.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So I guess the moral of the story is you just got to try it and see if the pros outweigh the cons, because I don't think it's all about level. I mean, a lot of people say, well, how good do I have to be to play with the long, skinny paddle? I don't think it's really about, your so-called level of your 4.0, 4.5, or 5.0 or pro. I think it's more about your hand-eye coordination. And if you're consistently able to get your contact in the center and you have no trouble with blocking, it doesn't really matter. I mean, if you're good at all that, your level is probably pretty high anyway. But it's more about that, and I think it's more about just seeing how it works for your game, you know.
yeah.
But it's great to have those two options now.
I agree with you what you just said. I've seen some people, especially where I play, um, a lot of them started going to the long paddle back with the Brian Jensen or the blade, and it felt a little premature that they were doing that. They like the power, as do I, but then I saw the downside with any paddle, and especially the long, is that if you start to hit it off center, you get you pay more for it with a skinnier paddle than with a
Yeah,
wider one. And so until that, there's some point where that's the scale you got to find. Where is that an advantage? Where is it a disadvantage? And where, as I'm guilty of, where am I so enamored by the power that I will ignore the ones I shank, the ones that I mishit. So that's
exactly.
for each player to figure out. And hopefully, the
I
best, I
ignore the
think,
ones.
go ahead.
I said I ignore the ones I miss it too.
Yeah. When you can start being honest with about those, then that's where I think people's games can improve. And I usually try to help people get scientific with that. That's maybe a little too cold of a word, but to
Yeah,
recognize we're all enamored by our great shots, and
right.
we usually just berate ourselves and maybe don't know how to effectively learn from the ones that we mishit. So learning to get both of those, yeah, I think that's where you can really start to move your game up because you're starting from where you actually are and not where you're pretending you are or hope to be, or all your member or your glory, like 3 shots you hit and forget about the 7 shanked into the net. But those are the
Right.
ones that hold someone back in their game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that was great. We gave the people information about the new Engage Poach Extreme, which up until a couple days ago I didn't even know existed. So I'm very excited to get my hands on one and to actually try this one out. I do play singles myself as well,
Hmm.
and I like the narrow paddles for the singles. I know a lot of people don't like switching, but I think those two games are so different that it does make sense to switch or to use something different for each game. But what about yourself? Are you playing more singles now than doubles, or is it split between both?
I'm not playing much pickleball, to be honest. Um,
Right. I know you're doing a lot of teaching now, right?
yeah, I focus more on that. Like I got to be at the pinnacle, and that was a real like highlight moment for me. And I live, part of it is logistical. I live about an hour and a half away from getting players I can play with. And so a
Right.
3 hour drive, I got to really have a commitment to it. And to stay at the level that I was at and compete with a lot of the fresh young players who are coming out, and people are just getting better and better. And I would, it would be too big a sacrifice, I think, for the rest of the things I'm into right now. But to
Right.
answer your question, I use the same one for both. I use, I haven't liked switching because to me, the advantages that I look for in singles, like a great serve, a great return, being able to put the ball away, more reach, they're all things I want in doubles too. So I never felt the need to switch. And so, but if someone did, you know, there's the advantage option of that. And of course, I mean, there's other great paddles too. I'm here talking about this one because it's the one I use. And I apologize, I didn't know you wanted to do one that was out. I thankfully, you know,
No, that's fine.
I get them before they're released, and I get to give Rob feedback and say, hey, can you change this or tweak that, or what do you think about this? And I've got another shape that he sent me one of that's still my favorite paddle that I hope he does in this. Well, and I think they also redid the graphic, the cosmetic yep. on the top, which is cool. It has like a big scope. Like these little things right. are, one of them's big in the middle, and which I'm excited about because I want to use it in training. So that's what I'm always helping people find is get to that sweet spot in your paddle and get to know your paddle so that you know when you're on and off. And because that you can't get consistent, you can't get accurate, you can't get power, you can't have the touch you want if the ball is moving all over the paddle on you. So, and it's not about paddles now, but I can't help myself to.
Okay, well, I appreciate you spending time with us. I mean, people value your opinion. You were one of the great players early on. It's a shame that you weren't able to play or you're not able to play as much as you would like now. But we all have to, you know, put our nose to the grindstone in our living sometime. It'd be great if we could just play pickleball all day, but unfortunately, that's not to be. But thanks for everybody for tuning in. I want to remind everybody. If I may say
before we end,
go ahead.
I am teaching still. I teach somewhat infrequently, but a few times a year. And I have a site, playgreatpickleball.com, and people could just email me, learnbyliving@gmail.com, and I got something on Facebook too, a Play Great Pickleball with Matthew Blom, that try to let people know when I'm doing stuff. And because I like the teaching, I like passing on what I got from all my years of playing tennis and badminton and ping pong, and I think it's fun to get into the like subtlety of contact point and spin and power and how you use your body and how you learn. I'm kind of thinking of like how to call it, like how to play natural pickleball, or you know, something right. that is fun. You get out and you're experimenting and learning, and so a lot of things that I do are when I teach with other pros, when they get to my court, usually the first thing I say to them is, "This is going to be the weirdest court that you're on. Not necessarily the best, but the weirdest for sure." And it's all an attempt to try and get some of the things that you can't get just with like online videos or other things, of like having someone look at you and be able to, any good coach can do it. But to have that feedback specifically to you, and I get people singing and doing all kinds of stuff to help them with their game, and you'd have to talk to the students to know if it's worth it, but it's fun.
Okay. That sounds great. And just in hearing the way your insight into the game and the way you talk about things, I could tell that that you make a great teacher. And hopefully people, you can keep passing on your knowledge to people, and hopefully you can keep being part of the sport for a long time, you know, in whatever manner you choose to do it. And I thank you for taking the time tonight. It was a lot of fun, especially playing and singing with you. That was cool.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. That's great.
That was great. And I just want to remind people that hopefully Rob's going to get flooded now with a bunch of calls, people wanting this new Engage Poach Advantage and the Poach Extreme for you guys that like that paddle shape. Also, if you call Engage or you order on their website, make sure you use my promo code Jack10. It will get you a 10% discount. So don't forget to put that into the promo code. And thanks to all our live listeners. We had about 25, 30 people on, so that's not too bad, especially since it wasn't.
Jimmy Butler, good. I haven't been watching, but I saw some people that I just adore. So yeah.
Yeah. You can
And
check the comments after. Yeah.
okay, that is one thing about. I'm glad you mentioned your promo code because these are more expensive um, than the other Engage or most other paddles. So it's, I think if you're serious about it, go for it. And hopefully, I don't know, if you get one, you can let other people try it before they need to splurge on it or something. But um, they are kind of a premium paddle that he's made, and so he's charging accordingly.
Yep. I think it's well worth it. I mean, it's all, for me, it comes down to how much you use something, if it's worth the extra expense. If you're using it every day for hours a day, I mean, what's a little bit extra money? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you're getting the use out of it. If you're spending $5,000 on a Sea-Doo or something and it's sitting in your garage, that's dumb. But if you're out,
Yeah.
jet skiing every day, then it's worth the money. So you guys that play pickleball every day, go get yourself the best paddle you can find, and be done with it and don't worry about it. So that'll be it for tonight. Thanks everybody. Check out my webpage, www.pickleballpaddlereviews.net. I have all my prior reviews on there. I have my article, which was in Pickleball Magazine, which helps you to pick out a paddle. Go to my YouTube page, Pickleball Paddle Reviews on YouTube, and check them out. And we'll see everybody next time. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and thank you. And we'll see everybody later. Take care.
Bye-bye.